Chicken.
Okay, I'm gonna go rinse my mouth out now.
Hey, welcome to our show this week. This is going to be brought to you in segments, and we're going to videotape most of it because we're doing smoked barbecued ribs. The whole process takes about 8 hours, and I don't think any of you want to sit here and watch. So bear with me and enjoy the show. I hope you learn something from it. And if you have any questions, send them to me, and we'll be happy to cover them. Hi, I just want to say something real quick. October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Let's not forget it just because we're into November already. I've had 2 friends die from it, and I've known a few that are going through treatment. We need to support these ladies at all times. Do your part. I don't care if it's with Susan G. Komen or who, but help support the women going through breast cancer, and let's get the cure for this. Okay, so we're back, and what we're gonna do now is up this rib. The tools I need for this, I've already done one, as you'll see over here. I have a nice sharp fillet knife. This you want to be razor sharp, so be very careful when you're working with it. This is in case you get in a tough section, and it's just a small utility knife, also razor sharp. I keep a pair of hemostats. You can see a little bit of the fat stuck to it. I use that for really tight spots so I don't have to get my fingers cut. Before I started all this, though, what I started with is I used a little apple cider vinegar, some mango nectar, and water. I put that in a third to third to third mix in my spritzer. Every 20 to 30 minutes while you're cooking and smoking your meat, you need to spritz them or they'll get dry. And most people, a lot of people, I should say, use apple. I like mango. I like the flavor it gets to the underlying meat, and it really breaks up and softens the meat nicely. So let me get them out. Those also are the same thing I put in my drip pan for steam. Also a third mix of each. The apple or mango, the water, and your apple cider vinegar. Also, I make sure I have my Diet Coke handy. So if you're out there, Coke, I need a sponsor. Send me money. Send me pop. The only 2 things in this show I'm not going to tell you is what my secret recipe is for the rubs I make myself. However, you can use any rub you want. Um, but if you want one of these, what I decided, I thought about this last night. If you go onto the site and sign up for Patreon, anybody who does a $20 or $50 thing, I will send you a bottle this size of my secret rub. I also will not tell you what sauces I use. I try and keep that a secret. It's kind of your signature flavors. I have several that I use depending on what I'm doing. Um, Everything ranging from your standard Kansas City to a Memphis down to a Texas to black bean and you name it. I have several. This week I'm going to be using a sweet peach hickory smoked barbecue sauce. I won't tell you where I got it from or what the recipe is, so sorry. With the meat here now, what I want to do is we're going to take our fillet knife and we want to remove excess fat off in this because the fat and the tendons is what's going to keep this meat from getting nice and tender when you're cooking it. On the front side, we don't have a lot to remove. You want to leave a little of the fat, so you look for like this here where it's going to be this gelatinous stuff when you cook it. And we just want to take that off a little bit down to where you'll get a little harder fat, and that'll still give you some of the flavor because nobody likes ribs that don't have some fat to them. But nobody also likes it when it's gelatinous feeling. You want to get that so it'll be able to turn a nice fatty flavor, a little bit of a crisp to it, but not too crisp. To get that, we just remove like the surface of the loose stuff and get down to where you can see it's a little hard. That's a little bit gelatinous there, so I'll take that off as well. And I save my fat to see how much I have at the end because you can take that, you can make a nice suet out of it for the birds, cook it down and make an aspic, which is a meat-based gelatin, really good for doing pates and stuff, or you can use it as a fat for cooking. Now, On the back side, what we want to remove is what they call the silver skin, and that's that semi-clear layer you see over the meat here. This can be tricky to get off. It's very dangerous. Your sharp knife, if I do anything in a kitchen that's going to cut me, this is where I risk doing it because it is a very dangerous job. So keep your fingers out of the way and just let the knife do the work. It's the easiest way to describe taking it off is it's almost like shaving. If you're going to shave your whiskers, it's the same process. You want to let the knife do the work, just sliding through there carefully and smoothly. But we'll start up here, get a little of this heavier fat off. Now, what you're doing on this side with removing the fat is allowing your seasonings to actually get to the meat. This fat and the silver skin will keep it from doing that. It will also keep it from getting tender. This silver skin, believe it or not, stops it from tenderizing. So it's important that we get it off. However, you can't always get all of it off, so you do the best you can. We're just going to get this off here. And there's not a lot up here that we have to remove, which makes our life a little easier. Just some of the excess. And these this time I'm doing are spare ribs. And you can use any of them. I have found there's a huge difference though. I won't name stores, but I have had stores where their house brand really never got tender, and I've had name brands that are just phenomenal. You get what you pay for in ribs, so watch the prices. Don't be ridiculous in what you're buying, but wait till you get a good sale on a name brand. And that part up there is probably good enough because you can see your meat there, plus you still got a little bit of fat, so that's going to help you out. So we'll come down here to the silver skin now. This is the part that's the dangerous and hard part. This knife can hit these bones in here and pop out and slide right into your finger. Easiest way to do this is get your razor sharp knife, just get it to start working under that edge. All you want is just under it. And you can see how easy and how thin it is. Once you get it started though, it should come off. Some of these sections, like this is not a very fatty rib, so this will tend to stick really easy. I don't always recommend this, but I like to stick my finger under there to hold it up a little at times, but be very careful. And you can see how easy that knife gets under there and just pulls that off the meat. But it also slides out easy, and that's where you can get cut. So if you get the trouble spots, that's what we're going to use these for. You can always get hold of that and get your finger out of the way and let the hemostat hold it. Let's put that all into that pan over there, a bowl. We'll work on our next one. It's not as important really to get it off the bone here as it is the meat. If you can't, and it's really like with this one where it's really lean rib, just get your meat exposed if you have to. Put score, whatever you have to do, and just get a little of that meat showing. This one's going to stick up here because there's a little bone that comes out. I pay a lot of attention. I try not to turn my head and watch other things because it is very quick when you cut yourself. It just sort of happens. A nice piece out of the way. We'll go back now and try and get that split up again. There we go. Not sticking to the bone because it's not very fatty. So at least we got it off the meat for that part. You can see right off the bat the meat underneath it. Once that meat's showing, you know your tenderizer and seasonings can get to it. This one's just going to be a pain over here. It does not want to separate. So we'll just, there we go. Now we got it open. We'll try and skim up. It's like a little shave of a bone or something sticking up there, and that's what's giving us the problem. So we're going to try and just remove it. That's nothing but a sharp bone. It's like saw. didn't quite cut where it was supposed to, slightly off. Let's get that, get to it, and I'll twist it a little bit. Try and get under it. There we go. Be very careful. You saw where I turned the knife because it was ready to slide up and get me. So pay attention. There we go. Now we'll come back over here. This part should actually go a little quicker and easier now. Get under there, cut through. That. This one's not quite cleaning up as easy as the last rib, but it is coming off. Sometimes you get ones where the silver skin just comes right off. Then you get ones like this that it sort of wants to fight you a little bit. Just be patient. Don't do anything rash. It will come off. It may take a little work. Well, usually it takes about 20 minutes per rib to clean one of these. You'll get ones that'll be done in no time, and then you get like this one where it's lean and it's going to fight. So we'll just be very careful. And this one, rather than fight that too much, we're going to come in. You saw I just come in a little bit of an angle with the tip, work it down, pull that up, get under it, at least get the meat exposed. It's very crucial though, whatever you do, get that meat exposed or your rib will never really fully soften up. Like I said before, I like to do two different methods for ribs. One is in the smoker, others in the oven. One of these days I'll show you the oven one. It's a different one. You don't get the smoke flavor. You can get a rib that just falls apart. It's so tender. The smoker, this technique we're going to teach is called the 3-2-1, and this one actually is used by most of the pit masters. And it, if done properly, will also have this meat ready to just fall off the bone. I try and keep it so it's a little under that stage. I want you to be able to take your fork, pick it up, however you like to eat it, and not have it fall in your lap, yet still be completely tender and flavorful. So the first stage, they say, takes 3 hours. In the smoker, I tend to do about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I get a result that I'm happy with. Depending on your smoker, you just play around, find the time you like that gives you the results you like. Also, if you're doing 1 or 2 racks, you'll have less time cooking than if you're doing 3 or more. You have a lot more heat that's not dissipating into other meats, so it goes a little quicker, gets a little hotter. So we're almost done with this one. Careful to get under there. Pull it back a little. So that little flap, there we go. Work our way under. And so I'll do this in these several little segments so you don't have to sit here and watch me for hours on end. Like that. Slide up a little, scrape that, try and get that out of there. Just sinew, silver skin tendons, they will not tenderize. They will never be that good. Now, get under there. See if I can get this little bit coming from the bottom of that. Careful to get that. Get that without getting all the meat. Once again, work yourself up. Just let the knife do the work. Tip under there. Work it under that edge. Just pull up a little and slide. And get that without losing all of the beef, all the pork, all the beef, whatever you're using. That is pretty much about ready to go into a smoker as soon as we season it up and let it sit. last little bit because I tend to get a little more picky than some people. Once we get it to this point, the last step before we go seasoning this, take your ribs. And this is going to make it nicer when you go to actually serve them. Cut about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way down between the bones. And right in the center of it, split that meat evenly. And this also will help make them cook a little softer because you're getting more heat to that area, which normally wouldn't get there. It would have to dissipate through all the outer part and work its way in. Doing this, it's going to get there quicker. I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way, like I said, maybe 3/4, till you get down to this end piece. Then just leave that piece how it is. With that said, our rib is ready. That's a bone there. It looks like it's fat up in that corner, but it's actually a bone. So with that, let's get ourselves our rub. You need to season this and let it sit for a minimum of 2 hours or overnight. If you're going to do it, just let it sit for 2 hours. We're going to want that a little heavier than if we were sitting overnight. If I was sitting it overnight, I'd do it a little lighter. And the reason being is it's going to soak in an awful lot of salt if it's overnight. Where in the day, if you're only doing it for a couple hours, you're going to get as much. But you still want enough to get in there to start tenderizing that meat. So put it on about that heavy. About half of that if I'm doing it overnight. Let's flip it over. We do both sides. And this always makes a huge mess. So be ready for that part. There is cleanup involved in this. Put that on. Give it a light pat. I don't want to drive it in. I just light pat, just so it doesn't fall off easy. It will fall off as it's cooking. With that, we have our rib. And we can put that onto our tray. What I'll do is I'll cover those and put those in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. And we'll be ready to smoke. So we'll be back for the next segment shortly. Open it. You know you're ready? All right, so what we're doing now is we have our smoker here. I have it set to 235 degrees Fahrenheit. This first part's going to take 3 hours. So all we're going to do, and I tend to use the middle shelves as much as possible so I don't get too much difference in the heat from the... All right, so it's been 20 minutes, so I'm going to add some... You know you're ready? All right, so what we're doing now is we have our smoker here. I have it set to 235 degrees Fahrenheit. This first part's going to take 3 hours. So all we're going to do, and I tend to use the middle shelves as much as possible so I don't get too much difference in the heat from the top to the bottom. Put them in so the tops are up and the bones are down. If they look too wet, just lightly pat them with the towel before you put them in a paper towel. We're just going to put those in and give a quick light spritz to them. Not too much because we don't want them getting too wet and fatty. It'll just pool and get yucky. So just a small amount. Now I'm going to also put our wood in. I have my drip pan under here. Like I said before, that's 1 part water, 1 part mango, and 1 part apple cider. And we'll put our wood chips in. And this time I'm using a hickory. I use a lot of apple and cherry wood also, but I chose to do hickory with the flavor that I'm going to be doing for the sauce. Of course, some of these are not cut as small as I would like. Put that in, drop them down. And for the next part, this is going to take 3 hours. We're going to leave them in here at 235. All right, so it's been 20 minutes. So I'm going to add some more wood chips and spritz our meat. So about every 20 to 40 minutes, depending on the wood, you'll need to add more chips unless you have a pellet smoker. I personally prefer using the wood. It gives me a little more control, and if I want to stop doing the smoking and just let it go with the heat, I can do so. There we just added some more wood, and we're just going to spritz in here now. As you can see, the meat's starting to cook. It's starting to look nice. A little bit there. That stuff, if you let it get too much pooled, will get a little congealed and it's not that good. All I want to do is a light spritz on the meat. And that would be it. We're going to do this again in another 20 minutes. So we're back now, and this has been cooking now for 3 hours out in the smoker. What we're going to do now is get our ribs ready for the next part. You can see how beautiful those are. What we want is we want the foil, or you can use the butcher's paper. If you're using foil, make sure you have it shiny side in. If you put it the wrong way, then it's going to just put the heat away from the meat. What I want to do on this side is I'm just going to spritz it a little. Put just a little bit of agave. You can use honey if you'd like. I like to use agave because it doesn't add that flavoring to it. It just sweetens it up and lets it have its natural flavor. Once it's a little on that side, we want to flip that over. Everything we're going to do at this point is going to be on the bottom, and this is going to finish softening it up. While it was out in the smoker, I went out and I added chips about every 30 minutes and I spritzed it about every 20. So at this point, we're going to come back on this side, put our agave. What we need for this is agave, sweet butter, and then our spritzer that we've been using out on the grill. Let's put a nice, generous amount, not too much, not too little. It's going to sweeten our meat and help soften it. And add 4 pats of butter to it. Like I said, you don't want margarine for this. Margarine will not work right. Put your butter on there, like 4 little pats. Then we're going to take, and once again, we're going to spritz it really nice. And it doesn't matter how much, you can go heavy or light. That's about how much I use. And we're going to seal that up. Fold your bag over. And be careful, these bones will poke holes quite easily into your metal. Take and pull the 2 edges together. And start folding that over to seal it. What this is going to do is this is going to create a steam pocket. It's going to steam cook the meat for the next 2 hours. Remember which side you have your ribs on. You want the bottom side up when you put it back in the smoker. Otherwise, all that liquid that we just generated with the butter and the agave and the spritz it'll just sit in the foil, where if we leave it this way, it's going to trap it on top and absorb it down into the meat. So what I'm going to do now is this is just going back into the smoker for 2 hours, and then we'll come back and finish it off. And everything tested great all day, and unfortunately when we went live, it decided it was going to glitch. So needless to say, our ribs have been in the oven smoking all afternoon, been going long. We have about 20 minutes left to them, and what we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to start out with, I have made mustard greens is what we're going to have with it, and I'm going to show you how to make a really nice grits. So for the grits and all that, what we're going to do is we're going to need cheese, the grits, milk, and water. And I like to add a jalapeno and some salt and pepper. For 1 part grits to 4 parts liquid. So you can do just plain water, or like I said, I like it creamy, so I'm doing the milk with it. And that'll give it a nice texture. I'll also add a little butter to that. And that likewise makes it creamier. So we're just going to skin, peel, and take out the stems and ribbings from this jalapeno. This is just a nice twist to them that a lot of the southern restaurants have taken to doing. I like it. I've actually added bacon fat with it too before, but I like the flavor that this gives it, the nice sweetness to contradict everything else we're having, especially with greens, because we know that they can have their own flavor, and you want to get something to counteract it. It's a mixture of everything. Let's get rid of all these seeds and ribs. So we're just going to finely chop a jalapeno up.
Danny Croy says, "Where's my invite at?"
Well, come on over, Danny. You know where we live.
And Lynn Simpson says hi.
Hi. I appreciate everybody who has stuck with us tonight. It's a problem sometimes with fresh software that you haven't used before, is you will run into stuff that you're going to get these unexpected glitches. Unfortunately, like I said, we run it all day. We're practicing, running recordings, everything perfect until we go live. I believe I'm going to blame that on Murphy. Murphy was an optimist and made up all them dumb laws. All right, with that, we don't need them too fine, just little pieces. With that, we got them going. Grits a little stir here, and I'll probably turn them down. You can make grits, or greens. You can make them however you like. I've added a little butter as well as lemon on top of everything else just to give them a nice different flavor. And you want those to simmer for hours on end. We're going to start this up over here. You start by adding the butter first. About a tablespoon and a half. Put that right in there. Put our jalapenos into it. Now, if you had any questions in that, feel free to send them to me on this recipes today. Like I said, I know I didn't think anybody wanted to watch for hours on end and be bored by me. So, getting them going. I'm just stirring these around and giving the jalapenos a little bit of a start before I put the rest in so that they can soften a little. That they're getting a little bit there, a little translucent. We're going to start putting our grits in. Like I said, that's 1 cup of grits. And we're going to add, to get that mixed up, a cup of milk. Sorry, 2 cups of milk. Followed by 2 cups of water. Put that in. I like to put some pepper and salt in there. Not too heavy on the pepper, just a little bit, probably 1/8 of a teaspoon of that. And probably a 1/2 a teaspoon or so of salt. Once again, like I said, I like to use Himalayan myself. I like the flavor, and it seems to be a little bit better on the sodium. A little stir. And we dump in, I'm putting about a cup of shredded medium cheddar cheese into that. Give me a second to get these out of our way. We're going to stir that, and let's get that up to a boil. The grits take forever, but they're worth it if you get a good recipe going. Now I have here also this is the sauce we're going to be using to go onto our ribs, and that's a nice peach smoked sauce. Got a bit of pepper to it and a nice sweetness. And it should match up really nice with the hickory smoke we worked on the ribs. If you're in the northern states, pay attention to how we do grits, because when I was growing up in Michigan, I'm yet to find anybody there who knows how to cook good grits. It took me moving to the south to find out how to do them nice. Get the water out of the way. Just about ready. Now, the ribs are still in the smoker. They're getting pretty close. What we're going to do is when we bring those in, they're going to sit. We're going to put the first glaze on them at that point. A lot of people think you put your sauce on and then cook them. Put your sauce on at the end. And when we bring them in, I'm going to cheat and use the oven to finish. Usually I'll put a little sauce on, throw them back in the smoker. for about 5 minutes, but instead I'm going to use the oven rather than run back and forth. Let's get these grits to start boiling. One thing I like about these grits too is I'll take and do a nice spicy Cajun seasoning onto shrimp, saute them, set those right into the top of the grits. I know my friend David absolutely loves that, and he don't like grits, but he suddenly likes to do it when I do that. It's getting there. The cheese is starting to melt, so we should get a good boil going fairly soon. The longer you cook the grits too, the softer they get. You really don't want that grittiness that comes with them. The grits are just a white corn that's been ground up like cornmeal, only it's white instead of yellow. Nice flavor to that. Tonight when I opted for mustard greens, usually I'll do the ribs. I'll put either mustard greens, collard greens, mixed greens. A lot of times I'll serve them also with a nice pinto bean. Like you can serve your ribs with anything. If you want potatoes, do a baked potato, or do a baked potato, cut it in half and throw it on your grill for a little while. Let it char up a touch. Turn that down. I want to get going. I'm going to start warming up my sauce a little bit. And there they're boiling. This is taking later tonight than I had planned. That's all right. Like I said, thank you all for sticking around. Pay attention to, like I said at the beginning, I have my own rub mixes that I do. I won't give the recipe out for that, but anybody on here who wants a bottle of it, you can contact me. I'd gladly sell you. Or go on and sign up for Patreon, and I'll send you one. If you're doing the aspiring chef or the chef cuisine level on Patreon, then I'll send you one free. I probably got a better deal than the stores do. If you're going by rubbing the stores, it runs you about $10 for a smaller bottle. The bottle that I'll send you probably would run you about $20 in the store, but I'd be happy to send that. This is all looking good. As that's starting to boil, it's probably close to time to go get our ribs out of the smoker. So I'm going to take this phone from you. Go bring our ribs in. I let that boil. I'm not too worried about it. Once it gets to a good heavy boil, then I'll turn it down to a simmer. We want that nice and creamy looking. Whatever you do, don't get instant grits. That's a waste of your money. It'll not be nearly as good as taking the time and cooking them properly. I know watch pot never boils, but here we are watching them. And Leva's bringing them in right now. These are first tray of the ribs. What I'm going to do while we're waiting for that to get going, I'm going to put a light glaze on these. Don't do these heavy. We're going to cheat tonight and throw them into the oven instead of finishing off in the smoker, just so I don't have to run back and forth. You could do it in smoker, you can do it in the oven. fact, before you do this, if you wanted, and you cook the extra, you could let them cool. Throw them onto your grill. Once they're on your grill, heat them up. And then take them out and sauce them then. You're going to sauce them right near the end of it. Otherwise, the sauce will just burn. It's pretty much sugar. And this is the messiest part to it. And I already see what I'm going to have to clean on my stovetop. Thank you, Lita. Anybody wondering, Lita is the video you saw at the beginning. Can play for $2. I could get her to do that. There. These ribs are looking really good.
They
Nice.
smell great.
That's all I want on there. It's probably that much. It's fairly light, just enough to coat the top. Big part will come when we go and pull them out of the oven. There we go. We're starting to thicken up on the grits. Get some stirring. Don't want it to stay clumpy. Get it mixed in there. Look at that, nice, beautiful. Now, at this point, if I looked and I wasn't sure, I can always add more cheese. Flavor right here. I always dread this part. That's pretty. I'm going to add a little more cheese here in a second. Bear with me. I'll double up our cheese. I'm getting my bag to open here. Likewise, you can experiment, play around, use whatever cheeses you like. I tend to like cheddar, but I don't like a sharp cheddar. Put about another cup worth in there, just for stronger flavor. Thank you. Now it's going to start splattering everywhere. I like that color better. I don't want to overcook those ribs, so all I'm going to do now is I put them in with a nice high heat, turn off my oven, and just let them sit in there now for a couple minutes and age themselves. When they come out next, I'm going to cut them and we'll sauce them at that point. That's where I'll put the heavy sauce. I'm just curious. You coming over, Danny? Or did you forget how to drive here?
Danny says that his car is in shop currently.
I was gonna say, tell him we can just go pick him up.
Danny's an old friend of Kyle's for years now. Friend of the family. He's helped out with a lot of things around this house. He is family, yeah. Whether we want him or not, we kind of got to. Danny's also a new father this year.
Last year.
Sorry, last year. Got a 1-year-old. These are going to start splattering a lot. So I'm going to turn the heat back down on them. Set it right about the midway point. I want them to keep that bubbling going, but I don't want to get splattered and burnt. Oh yeah, those greens are looking good. Let's test, see how they're flavored. Nice, nice. A little bit of a lemon flavor, but still got the bite that mustard gives you. So I haven't decided what I'm doing next week. I might go Creole. I might do something with shrimp. I'm not sure yet. I know I've had a couple friends wanting me to teach them edifice, so that's on the agenda somewhere down the road here. And I've splattered stuff all over that counter. I keep stirring the grits though because they can burn quite easy as they thicken. Those are looking beautiful. Get them to soften here and we're almost done. I think I'm going to turn them the rest of the way down and we're going to get our ribs finished up. Put that down to a 2. And we're going to move stuff over here. Bring back our cutting board. Pan out. Oh yeah, those look beautiful there. Nice and sizzling. But when I do them at this point, this is where you usually make the biggest mess. Overcook them, they're going to fall apart as you do that lift. Like that one's coming off, but it's not quite overdone. Too much in the way, so let me move this. I tend to go about 2 to 3 bones, depending on the size in, and split them. That way people can get what they want, and they can always come back for more. Put them to save a little bit of a mess for me. Put them back on the pan before I sauce them. Give me a little trouble. Didn't want to cut all the way through on that one. I must have hit the bone as it went down. Bring those back. And then we'll put the heavy sauce on them. And at this point, I try and get it onto both sides. Everybody likes a nice sticky rib. You can use any sauce you really like. I have my own favorites, and like I said, I'm not going to tell you which ones I use because it's kind of my little secrets, and nobody ever gets exactly the same as mine. If you do, then I guess I left the secret out, or you figured it out. Which is possible. I used to sit there, go to new restaurants, find something I like, and go back and figure out what the recipe was for it. How did they make it? So I'm sure there's somebody out there who could do that with what I use. And move that up. Beautiful. Slide that to the side. Want my other pan. Quick stir before I forget. Those are looking really good. And that's how you fog up your glasses. Bone out of there. Pull them over. That's a nice looking rack right there. Slice it going. Look at the inside of that. It's beautiful. It's picked up that pink from the seasoning. Cook all the way through. She can flip them over this time. That way they'll look prettier when I sauce them. Not flip them back. If you don't have two sets of tongs, you can always use a pair of tongs and a frying pan turner. That'll work just as well. There we go. See if I can get them back without a mess. Well, let's take our time, be smart about it. But back over. Another quick sauce. And if we time this right, those grits should be just about done at the same time here. When I'm doing this many ribs, I will easily go through about a quart and a half of sauce. Don't spare any, I use it all. Flip them all over and do the other side. This was one of my mom's favorite foods. She absolutely loved ribs. Couldn't cook them as good as me though. Oh well, she tried. And our final saucing, and we'll be done with all of this. Beautiful, beautiful. This is definitely a messy dish to cook and a messy dish to eat. Make sure I get it dripping down on the sides. Look at that. That's 2 quarts of sauce. With that, we'll move this all out of the way and we'll get ready to plate and show you what it's going to look like. And for this, I decided these are my grandmother's plates. One of my favorite things I own. The plates were given to me by my mother of my grandmother's. I also have my mother's china. 2 prized possessions. Let's make sure they're nice and tender. Beautiful. We can turn everything off. It's all ready to go. So, grab a tong. Let's get this all plated up. Lita has helped me all day. She gets the first plate. And if you can remember, reach across to get some serving spoons. I'm not even going to put the grits on the same plate. If I had shrimp with them, I would. Put that inside. Oh, is that beautiful? And the grits. Some nice mustard. Bring as much as liquid as you can. Nobody likes the liquid that much. Yeah. There's our dinner for the night. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining me, and I hope you come back next week. I pray we don't get the same glitches, but come join us. Join Patreon. I'll send you the bottle of the rub. And have a great night. Bon appetit.